The crash had scattered debris across 3 kilometers of purple vegetation. Emergency pods lay smoking in the alien soil, their occupants long since evacuated or dead. In the chaos of the colony ship's destruction, one pod had sailed farther than the rest, landing in a dense forest where the trees grew thick as tower blocks and twice as tall. Inside that pod, 8-year-old Tommy Chen woke to silence and the smell of burnt plastic. His head throbbed. Through the cracked viewport, he saw nothing familiar. No rescue teams, no other survivors, just endless purple forest stretching in every direction under a sky that glowed faintly orange. He tried the emergency beacon. Dead. The communication panel sparked uselessly when he touched it. His hands shook as he grabbed the survival pack from under the seat. Water purification tablets, 3 days of rations, a thermal blanket, and a medical kit. Nothing that would help him find his parents or the other colonists. Tommy climbed out of the pod and nearly fell. The gravity felt wrong. Lighter than Earth, but heavier than the ship's artificial gravity. He steadied himself against the pod's hull and looked around. The forest pressed in from all sides, dense and alive with sounds he didn't recognize. Clicking noises, distant howls, the rustle of things moving through the undergrowth. Then he heard the chirp, a familiar sound that made his heart leap. "Rattel!" Tommy called out, his voice cracking with relief. The honey badger emerged from behind a piece of wreckage, his black and silver fur matted with soot. Rattel had been the ship's unofficial mascot. Adopted by the crew after being rescued from an illegal exotic animal transport. Tommy's mother, the ship's veterinarian, had cared for the creature, and Tommy had spent countless hours with him. Honey badgers, his mother had explained, were nearly indestructible. They feared nothing. They fought lions, survived venomous snake bites, and could dig through concrete. Rattel chirped again and trotted over, sniffing Tommy's legs before sitting back on his haunches. The animal seemed unharmed, which was more than Tommy could say for himself. His left arm bore a nasty bruise, and his ribs ached with every breath. "Good boy," Tommy whispered, kneeling to scratch behind Rattel's ears. "At least I'm not alone." The first day passed in a blur of walking. Tommy picked a direction and moved, hoping to find other survivors or some sign of the main colony site. Rattel followed, occasionally disappearing into the underbrush to hunt or investigate strange smells. The forest grew darker as the orange sun dropped toward the horizon, and Tommy realized with growing fear that he had no idea where he was going. He made camp in a hollow between 2 massive tree roots, using the thermal blanket to create a small shelter. Rattel curled up beside him, radiating warmth. Tommy ate half a ration bar, drank carefully from his water supply, and tried not to think about his parents. Were they alive? Had they made it to escape pods? The questions circled his mind endlessly. He didn't know that 5 kilometers away, a hunting party had detected the crash site. The Kryn were apex predators on 17 worlds. They stood 3 meters tall on digitigrade legs, with 4 arms ending in razor-sharp claws. Their faces were flat and broad, dominated by compound eyes that could see in multiple spectrums. They had perfected the art of the hunt across a dozen species, and they had come to this world specifically because it had been designated for human colonization. Humans, the Kryn had learned, made excellent prey. They were soft, slow, and their young were completely helpless. The Kryn had intercepted the colony ship's distress signal, had watched it break apart in orbit, and had landed their own vessel to collect trophies. Human skulls brought high prices in certain markets. Human children were considered especially valuable specimens for their collections. The lead hunter, Vrax, studied the scanner display. Multiple human life signs scattered across the impact zone. Most were clustered near the main wreckage site, but one signal had separated from the others. A lone human, small, moving through the forest without direction. "Easy prey," Vrax clicked to his companions. We take this one first. Young ones panic and cry. They draw others to us. The hunting pack moved through the forest with practiced silence. They had hunted on heavier gravity worlds than this. Their optical camouflage bent light around their bodies, making them nearly invisible. They carried energy weapons, though Vrax preferred to make kills with his claws. It was more traditional, more honorable in the eyes of the hunting clans. They found Tommy's camp just after the orange sun vanished completely. The boy was asleep, curled under his metallic blanket. The small creature beside him registered on their scanners as a non-threat. Local fauna, perhaps, or some kind of pet. Either way, it was irrelevant. Vrax signaled for the others to spread out. They would surround the camp, activate their capture field, and be back at their ship within the hour. The boy would be conscious for the beginning of the processing, as was tradition. Young ones needed to understand what they had become. He moved forward, claws extending, already imagining the moment of capture. That's when Rattel opened his eyes. The honey badger's senses were far sharper than human ones. He had smelled the hunters 10 minutes before they arrived, had heard their breathing from 50 meters away, had felt the vibrations of their footsteps through the ground. He had stayed still because Tommy was sleeping, and Tommy felt safe. But now these things were close, and they smelled wrong. They smelled like threat. Rattel rose silently to his feet. His lips curled back, revealing powerful jaws and sharp teeth. His fur bristled. He positioned himself between Tommy and the largest of the approaching threats. Vrax saw the small creature stand and nearly laughed. It was barely a meter long, perhaps 15 kilograms. His people hunted beasts that massed 3 tons and could bite through starship hull plating. This little animal was nothing. He took another step forward. Rattel charged. The honey badger crossed the 5 meters between them in less than a second. Vrax, shocked by the tiny creature's aggression, swung one massive arm to swat it aside. His claws should have cut the animal in half. Instead, Rattel ducked under the blow with incredible agility and launched himself at Vrax's torso. The honey badger's jaws found the soft spot where Vrax's neck met his shoulder. Teeth designed to crack tortoise shells and dig through termite mounds sank deep into alien flesh. Vrax shrieked and stumbled backward, all 4 arms flailing as he tried to dislodge the creature. Rattel held on, twisting and tearing. His claws raked across Vrax's chest, finding seams in the hunter's armor and exploiting them ruthlessly. When Vrax finally managed to grab the honey badger and rip him away, a chunk of the hunter's neck came with him. Purple blood sprayed across the clearing. Vrax collapsed, gurgling, all 4 hands pressed to the wound. His companions froze in shock. The small animal had just killed their pack leader in under 10 seconds. Tommy woke to chaos. The first thing he saw was Rattel, covered in purple blood, facing off against 3 massive shapes that shimmered at the edges of his vision. The second thing he saw was a dead alien, its body sprawled across the ground. His scream caught in his throat, terror locked his muscles, but Rattel didn't hesitate. The honey badger was already moving toward the next hunter, his chirps and growls now sounding like challenges. The second Kryn hunter raised an energy weapon. The shot went wide as Rattel darted left with impossible speed. The honey badger reached the hunter's leg and bit down with such force that the crack of breaking bone echoed through the forest. The hunter toppled, and Rattel was on its throat before it hit the ground. The remaining 2 hunters activated their capture fields, trying to trap the small creature in stasis beams. Rattel simply powered through them, his legendary tenacity overriding pain and paralysis. He reached the 3rd hunter and went for the eyes, his claws finding the vulnerable compound lenses and destroying them in 2 quick swipes. The alien's screams were inhuman and terrible. It fled blindly into the forest, crashing through undergrowth. The 4th hunter, seeing 3 of its companions dead or disabled in under a minute, made the only logical choice. It ran. Rattel started to give chase, then stopped. He turned back to Tommy, who still sat frozen in his thermal blanket, eyes wide with shock and disbelief. The honey badger trotted over, purple blood dripping from his muzzle, and chirped softly. He nudged Tommy's hand with his nose. "Rattel," Tommy whispered. You saved me." The honey badger sat down and began cleaning his fur, completely unbothered by the carnage around them. It was simply what honey badgers did. They protected their territory. They fought anything that threatened them. And they never, ever gave up. Tommy's hands stopped shaking. He looked at the dead aliens, at their advanced weapons and armor, at the scanning equipment that must have led them here. They had been hunting him. They had probably been hunting all the survivors, and Rattel had stopped them. He stood up, his fear transforming into something else, determination. If these creatures were hunting survivors, then other people were in danger. His parents might still be alive, might still be at the crash site, and these hunters might find them next. "Come on, boy," Tommy said, gathering his supplies. "We need to warn the others." Rattel chirped in agreement and set off through the forest. Tommy followed, and for the first time since waking in the crashed pod, he didn't feel helpless. He had a direction, he had a purpose, and he had the most fearless guardian in the galaxy. Behind them, the surviving hunter reached his ship and immediately sent a priority transmission to the Kryn fleet. The message was brief, but urgent. Humans had brought a new species to this world, a small but impossibly vicious predator that showed no fear and could not be killed by conventional means. The hunter recommended immediate withdrawal and that the planet be marked as a forbidden hunting ground. But by then, Tommy and Rattel were already tracking through the forest toward the main crash site. The honey badger's nose picked up scents on the wind. Human and alien both. Tommy followed, his young mind already working through what he would say when he found other survivors. They needed to know about the hunters. They needed to prepare. They needed to understand that they weren't helpless. They reached the crash site 3 days later. Tommy had lived on ration bars and water purified from streams. Rattel had hunted local fauna with brutal efficiency, leaving partially eaten carcasses in his wake. Twice more they encountered Kryn hunters. Both times Rattel attacked first, and both times the aliens retreated after losing members of their pack. The survivor camp was larger than Tommy had hoped. Nearly 100 colonists had made it to escape pods, and they had gathered around the main wreckage, using salvaged materials to build shelters and defenses. Security teams with improvised weapons patrolled the perimeter. Medical stations treated the injured. Children played in designated safe zones, while adults worked on rescue signals and survival plans. Tommy walked into camp covered in dirt and bruises, with Rattel trotting beside him. People stared. Someone shouted. Then Tommy saw his mother pushing through the crowd, her face transformed by desperate hope. "Tommy!" She swept him up in a crushing embrace. "Oh God, Tommy, we thought you were dead. The scanner said your pod landed kilometers away. We sent search parties, but the forest is too dense, and there are things hunting us." "I know, Mom," Tommy said quietly. "I met them. Rattel stopped them." His mother looked down at the honey badger, who was now sitting calmly and watching the gathered colonists with what could only be described as mild interest. She saw the dried purple blood on his fur. She saw the way other survivors were backing away, uneasy at the predator's presence. "He killed them, Mom," Tommy continued. "3 of those hunters. He didn't even hesitate. They were going to take me, and he stopped them." The story spread through the camp within the hour. More hunting parties had been attacking the perimeter for days, testing defenses, picking off stragglers. Colonists had died. More would die if they couldn't hold out until a rescue ship arrived. But now they had hope. They had seen what the honey badger could do. The colony's leaders, pragmatic people who understood survival, made a decision. They gathered every detail Tommy could provide about the hunter's tactics, equipment, and weaknesses. They studied Rattel's behavior, his fearlessness, his targeting of vulnerable spots. And they adapted. Security teams began using Rattel as an early warning system. His senses detected approaching hunters long before human scanners could. When attacks came, teams would hold position while Rattel charged forward, scattering the hunting packs and creating chaos in their ranks. The honey badger seemed to understand his role perfectly. He would engage the most dangerous threat first, giving humans time to deploy their improvised weapons. The Kryn hunting parties grew more cautious. They had never encountered resistance like this. The small predator was everywhere, tireless, fearless, impossible to predict. It ruined their carefully planned hunts. It made their advanced technology useless. They had come expecting soft prey and easy trophies. Instead, they found themselves being hunted. On the 15th day after the crash, a Kryn clan leader named Thex decided to end the conflict personally. He was a legend among the hunting clans, with 300 confirmed kills across 20 species. He would not be driven away by humans and their pet animal. He assembled his finest warriors, 50 strong, and prepared for a full assault on the survivor camp. They attacked at dawn, energy weapons blazing, capture fields deployed in coordinated patterns. The human defenders fought desperately, but they were being pushed back. Children screamed. Wounded colonists fell. The Kryn pressed forward with overwhelming force. Then Rattel emerged from a fortified shelter, Tommy running beside him. The boy had insisted on fighting. His mother had tried to stop him, but Tommy understood something the adults didn't. Rattel fought harder when Tommy was present. The honey badger was protective, yes, but it was more than that. They were a team. They trusted each other, and that made them stronger. Tommy pointed toward the largest Kryn, the one directing the assault with hand signals and tactical precision. That one, Rattel, the leader. The honey badger needed no further instruction. He charged across the battlefield, weaving between energy blasts and leaping over capture field emitters. Thex saw him coming and raised his personal weapon, a plasma cannon that could vaporize a human in one shot. He fired. The blast missed. Rattel was too fast, too low to the ground, too unpredictable. Then the honey badger reached Thex and leaped, jaws finding the clan leader's weapon arm and biting clean through armor, flesh, and bone. Thex roared in pain and fury. He tried to shake the creature off, tried to crush it with his other arms, tried everything his centuries of hunting experience had taught him. Nothing worked. Rattel was relentless, climbing higher on the massive alien's body, targeting joints and vulnerable spots with surgical precision. When Thex finally fell, his warriors hesitated, their greatest leader brought down by a creature that barely reached his knee. It was impossible. It was shameful. It was terrifying. The Kryn retreat began as a few scattered warriors pulling back. Within minutes, it became a full rout. They abandoned their equipment, their wounded, their carefully planned assault, and fled into the forest. Rattel pursued them to the tree line, his chirps and growls echoing like war cries, before returning to Tommy's side. The boy knelt and hugged the honey badger, not caring about the purple blood that soaked into his clothes. "Good boy," he whispered. "Good boy." Around them, the survivor camp erupted in cheers. They had won. Against impossible odds, against superior technology and numbers, they had driven off the hunters. And it was all because of a small, fearless creature that refused to back down from any threat. The rescue ship arrived 6 days later, guided by the emergency beacon the colonists had finally managed to repair. As survivors boarded the vessel, their stories began spreading through human space, stories of the crash, stories of the Kryn hunters, stories of the boy and his honey badger who had saved them all. Tommy sat in the medical bay while doctors examined his injuries. His mother sat beside him, holding his hand. Rattel lay curled at his feet, finally resting after weeks of constant vigilance. The honey badger's breathing was slow and steady, peaceful in a way it hadn't been since the crash. "They want to study him," Tommy's mother said quietly. "Military scientists. They say if we could understand what makes honey badgers so fearless, so tenacious, we could apply it to human soldiers, make better fighters." "No," Tommy said firmly. "Rattel's not a weapon. He's just himself. That's what makes him special." His mother smiled sadly. "You're right. But the galaxy knows about him now, about what happened here. The Kryn have already declared this system off limits to all hunting clans. They're calling it the Forbidden Zone. And do you know what they're calling Rattel?" Tommy shook his head. "The Guardian of Softskins. That's what their language translates to. They've added him to their list of apex predators to avoid at all costs, right up there with void serpents and stellar leviathans. A 15-kilogram honey badger is now considered as dangerous as creatures that eat starships." Tommy looked down at Rattel, who was now snoring softly, his little body twitching in sleep. He was probably dreaming of hunting, of protecting, of doing what honey badgers had done on Earth for millions of years. Just being themselves, just never giving up, never backing down, never showing fear. "He is dangerous," Tommy said. "But only to things that threaten us. That's what makes humans lucky. We're soft and slow and scared. But we're also smart enough to make friends with creatures like Rattel. And that's why we survive." His mother pulled him close, and they sat together in the medical bay while the rescue ship jumped to faster-than-light speed, carrying them home. Behind them, the planet grew small in the viewport, a world of purple forests and orange skies where the Kryn would never hunt again. And in the months and years that followed, the story spread further, to colonies on distant worlds, to military academies, to xenobiologists and historians. The story of the boy and the honey badger became legend, a reminder that humans might be weak individually, but they had something that made them strong. They made allies. They formed bonds. They brought creatures like Rattel out into the galaxy, not as weapons or tools, but as companions and friends. And those companions would fight for them with a ferocity that shocked even the most dangerous predators in known space. The Kryn learned this lesson the hard way. Other species would learn it too in time. That humans were not prey. They were survivors. They were adaptable. And they traveled with guardians that knew no fear.